with the things like recording. This meeting is going to be recorded. So if you want to share any thoughts or opinions and you don't want to leave your camera on, that's fine. But I just wanted to welcome everybody tonight. And this is our first community meeting for Billings Field. We plan on having a total of 3 meetings. So this is the first of 3. And the goal for tonight's meeting is really to hear from the community what you guys think should be addressed during this project. If it's something small, if it's something big, something you've been planning on for a long time, or something that just occurred to you, we are here tonight to listen and try and put all these pieces together and formulate a plan that we would be sharing in the next few meetings, developing that plan as we go. So if we could flip to the next screen, please. So here's some Zoom tips. A lot of people are familiar with Zoom at this point, but during the presentation, we're going to ask that you keep your mic off and keep yourself muted so that you don't distract any of the presenters. If you have any questions or comments during the presentation, please feel free to put it in the chat. And we will be responding to sort of easy questions during the chat, through the chat, and otherwise we'll be responding to all sort of questions and comments during the conversation period at the end. If we go to the next slide. So the agenda for tonight: project team introduction, park use overview, and existing site conditions. Then we go on to listening and discussion and closing remarks. Our goal for tonight is to wrap everything up by about 7:30, just so you have a sense of that time. Next slide, please. So here we are with the project team. I am B. Chatfield. I work for Boston Parks and Recreation, and I'm the project manager. Here's all of my information right here. Here's my email. Here's my phone number. I pick up my phone, and I have spoken to a number of you already. So very accessible, and I'm interested in hearing your feedback. I'm also here tonight with Christine Brandeo, who is our outreach coordinator, and our fantastically talented design team of Weston and Sampson. We've got Matt Sewell and Melissa Green here tonight. So if we go to the next slide, please. Lisa Simons says, will this presentation be available afterwards? And the answer is yes. We are going to be uploading it to our project page. And I'm going to put the project page in the chat just in case. Actually, if Melissa, if you wouldn't mind doing that, if possible. Yeah, you could download the presentation afterwards from our project page. And we also will have a video of this meeting as well. So you can watch the video again, if you'd like to. So here we are, Billings Field in West Roxbury, and go on to the next slide, please. Here is our project schedule. Right now, we've got our first meeting, October 2022. This is our site analysis stage where we really try and take up as much input as possible from the community to understand what our project should address. As you can see in the upper right-hand corner, our design budget is what we have approved right now. And that means that we're really curious to understand what you guys are looking for in this project so that we can go back to OBM, which is the Office of Budget Management, and figure out what an appropriate construction budget would be. So right now we've got design budgeted, and we are eager to figure out our design so we can establish what that construction budget would be. Doesn't mean it's completely open. We're always trying to design within a good budget, but just to let you know, we're really, lots of things are on the table right now. In December, we would come back to you with community meeting 2, that's design concepts, and that's where the design team takes the input that they've received from community meeting 1 and comes up with a couple of different ideas that we discuss at the meeting. And then we take that feedback from that meeting and probably a survey afterwards. And then generate the final schematic design proposal, which we share at community meeting 3, which would be in February. Assuming that is sort of a check-in where we're like, are we on the right page? Are we good to go? We move forward with construction documents. At that point, we would go into permitting in July and start construction in October of 2023 with approximately 1 year construction period. Fall 2024 would be the anticipated park opening. So all of that is dependent upon exactly what it is we're addressing here, but generally this is what we would anticipate be a timeline for a park of this size. If we could go into the next slide. So here we are, we have all of our design projects are really this combination of influences, and we balance the City of Boston priorities, safety and regulatory guidelines, our own goals from Parks and Recreation, and community input, which is what we're doing here tonight. And then we bring it all together and we ask our designers to share their take on it and pull it all together in a cohesive and attractive design. So next slide, please. So some of the City of Boston priorities that we include, we want to increase walkable access to parks within the City of Boston. We're trying to address equity, renovating parks in underserved areas. Climate resilience, we're trying to improve our parks as far as their survivability and their ability to provide respite during a hotter climate. Improving health, giving people options for active recreation, in other words, and community building as well. So providing space for people to gather and connect with their neighbors. Next slide, please. That mostly aligns with our Parks and Recreation priorities as well, trying to make parks accessible and available, encourage a diverse, balanced, and efficient mix of uses. So that means, if we have a lot of basketball in one park, for example, and someone down the street says, oh, can we have basketball right down the street? We like to sort of say, use that one over there. Maybe this park is better for another use. So we try and look at these things systematically. We want to conduct meaningful and inclusive community engagement, which is part of the goal here tonight. We want to create adaptive and resilient landscapes, and we want to promote community connections. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to pass this presentation over to Matt Sewell. He's going to dive into a few of the details that we've discovered during the last few months of research and talking to people. So again, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we will address them during the conversation period towards the end. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Bea. Appreciate it. We're going to run through a bit of history about the park. And then we're going to talk about present day uses and existing conditions, and then open it up to comments. And keep your phones handy there. We have sprinkled a few online polls throughout this. There'll be a QR code or a URL on the screen that you can enter and respond to the poll so that we can, as another way of getting feedback. So we've done some research just to get a sense of the history of the site. The site was first established in 1896. The first significant construction, you see 1917. And then there's a series of sort of significant interventions in the 70s, the 80s, 2000s to the present day. And we'll just flip through some plans so you can see those. So this is a historic map from 1905, and we're keeping all the maps oriented the same way, so I apologize that this one the letters are upside down. The parceling for the Sturgis on the top of the field there is we believe was hypothetical and was not ever actually completed, because if you go to the next slide, you'll see that Sturgis is actually, this is 1917, Sturgis is just dashed in there. So Sturgis wasn't quite completed by 1917. So we had the first a major construction, which was the construction of the baseball bleachers and a baseball field. The building that's on site predates that. It was built sometime before 1909. And then interestingly enough, in the right corner, it's designated as the Children's Corner. So, from 1917 on, that has always been the Children's Corner in its various iterations. If you go to the next one. So then in the 70s, we had a sort of significant build out of the park where they renovated the ball field to the left, and then they added the softball and the Little League fields. And renovated the Children's Corner. But again, there's still no equipment there as far as we can tell. And the next slide, please. And then in the 80s, the tennis courts were put in, and I think they refurbished the fields. They cleaned up the tot lot and sort of replaced the sand. And then the drawings don't reflect this, but we found documentation of a community effort in 1986 that was led by a resident named Pam Siegel, who enlisted the help of a landscape architect named Robert Leathers, who was building playgrounds that were purely community funded, because at the time the city was not going to make the funds available, and so the community funded the construction of a playground in the tot lot location there, and it was community funded, and the landscape architect had sort of community design session with kids and adults. So it was a real sort of community event. There was actually a parade that was sort of heralded the kickoff of the fundraising effort, and everybody could buy a board for $3. And so if you go to the next slide, unfortunately, that playground was constructed out of wood. And so at some point it did need to be replaced. So in the 2000s, we have the equipment. I believe most of the equipment that's there today was installed. And then the circulation path along the edge of the tennis courts was filled in, as well as the circulation to the playground. And then if you go to the next slide, I think, yeah, so that was the end of the major improvements. There was in 2019, they resurfaced the courts, the basketball courts and the half tennis court. I think that was the most recent update. So this is just to orient everybody in terms of the importance of the park. And I'm sure if you're familiar with it, you're aware that, within a 10-minute walk, there are no other, parks or playgrounds, the closest being the Parkway Little League field to the west, and then Bellevue Hill Park. So we recognize that's an important asset to the community. Next slide, please. And again, just zooming in to see the half-mile walk shed, this is really it in terms of public amenities within that 10-minute walking zone. Next slide, please. So here's our first poll. So you can either take a photo of hold your camera up to the QR code and go to the website, or you can enter slido.com in your browser and enter the number that's below the web address, and then yes, answer the questions. Thank you. And we'll just hang out here for a second to give people time. Well, that's I'm not stopping the poll yet, but that's great. It's nice to see that folks are using this place every day. I'm sure you have a lot of ideas given your intimacy with the place. So it looks like we're settling in on about 2/3 of folks visiting daily, and then a quarter weekly, over a quarter.
All right, looks like a lot of passionate daily users. Let's maybe move along to the next one, right?
Okay. All right. And then how do you currently use the park? And this helps us, again, understand what the priorities are in terms of the facilities.
Oh, that's cool. So I guess there's like a number of questions that all like they'll bump up on the screen as they're more and more popular. I didn't realize that. That's pretty cool. So lots of dog walkers. Got some baseball, some softball, community gathering. Cool, cool. I'm noticing in the chat, Leanne Bishop said, can you post the survey again? We're gonna have the, oh, sorry. Are you talking about the survey of the Slido? Or the survey? We're gonna be following up this meeting with a survey, and all of that information will be at the end of the presentation, if that is a survey you're referring to.
And if it's the Slido survey, you should be able to access it again with the QR code that's on the screen.
But the previous question, the Slido will have already moved on from that. And this is the only question I think that you can respond to at this point, which is okay. I mean, we're just trying to sort of get a sense of the room here. This is important information for us to know anyways, but if you didn't have a chance to answer the first question, it's not a big deal. We're not gonna fail you.
Yeah, and we will have a link at the end of the presentation to a more formal online survey that will collect complementary information in terms of park use. So it looks like a lot of more informal uses in terms of dog walking, community gathering, fitness, and then softball and the playground. Okay, I think B, if you're all right, I think we can move on. And again, there'll be a survey at the another online survey where you can record similar information. So this is just a diagram of existing uses, noting the entrances, the various entrances, and we're going to go through a series of photos after this of existing conditions, just to in case those spur a thought of a point you wanted to make or something you would like improved. So the general circulation is to the outside of the park, and it's not a continuous loop. We've noticed. So that's one thing that we're sort of immediately looking at and thinking about. There's a series of woodlands, there's a series of trails in the woods on the slope that have more informal uses. And then there's the entrances along the edge, some more informal than others. That there's a informal access off of the dead end on Sturgis, and whether folks would like to see that formalized or not would be a question. And then there's currently only one accessible entry, which would be off of LaGrange. And then another question we have in general is and this shows up in the online survey, is how does this, does it adequately accommodate its current uses? We're noting that the ball fields overlap a little bit, and that, we know the football field, or football/soccer directly overlaps with all fields. So we can move on to the next slide. So this is just to get a sense of permitting. We looked at the permits that were pulled for the fields between 2017 and 2022. We looked at a broader range, knowing that COVID, significantly impacted a couple of years in there, but just to get an overall sense of usage. The highest use was the baseball field and the softball field. Essentially, all three ball fields, and then the basketball court coming in fourth. And then if we go to the next slide, we also looked at it by hour, just because it changes the numbers a little bit, where that was bookings by day. This is bookings by available hours. And basketball actually jumps up from fourth to second when you look at just the number of hours it's booked. Just to get a sense, yeah, we can move on. Just to get a sense of how often the fields are actually in use. Here's a quick look at impervious surface versus pervious, which is great. It's nice to see limited amounts of impervious. We do know that there are drainage issues at the park that we'll be looking at. You can see in the aerial, you can see that sort of, I guess I would call it a French drain that's in the middle of the fields, where it's so dry that even the grass won't grow. But we'll be looking at sort of ways of improving that as part of this design. Next slide. We also took a quick look at initial canopy assessment of the individual trees around the park, not the wooded slope, but the individual trees along the edges. They're generally in fair condition. You can see a lot of ailing trees over on Quinn Way. And there was a question in our mind about the lindens, sort of back onto the buildings, about whether we're in a drought this year, and whether they're just suffering because of the drought, or whether they are actually in poor health. And so we'll need to do a bit more investigating there. It's nice to see that the trees around the playgrounds are in good health, except for maybe the cherries. But we did note there was a sort of a significant lack of shade in the park other than the playground. So that would be something we would look to increase. Next slide, please. So here's some just existing photos of the existing canopy. You can see sort of in the bottom center, these poor lindens along North Quinn will need to be replaced. There's a fair amount of, in the wooded slope, there's a fair amount of smaller trees that might need to be cut back at the edges. And there's certainly some dead trees on that slope that will need to be addressed. And again, similar to the circulation is at the edge of the park, and generally the trees are at the edge of the park. Next slide, please. And so if you use the site for recreation regularly, you're familiar with these, just images of the various fields. And you can see the basketball field and the handball or tennis court on the bottom have been recently resurfaced. Next slide. And this is a catalog of the entries. Again, they are, they are in relatively, they're old, let's say. So the entry stair off Bellevue could use some improving, along with the entry stair off of Quinn. The entry gate off of Pediatrics lot, we were curious if anybody actually uses that. And one note that we had was that the parking lot is pitched into the park. And so I assume you can tell with the movement of the gravel that when it rains, it's carrying a lot of material into the park. And so that'll be something we take a look at. And there's also the boulders along Quinn Way, and then the entries at the playground. Next. So then these are the informal thresholds, the sort of coming in off of Sturgis Road along the above the wall there, the informal paths coming down through the woodland. And those are the majority of the informal is that woodland edge and Sturgis Road edge. And the Sturgis Road fence itself is in pretty poor condition. And we're wondering if there needs to be a more formal entry off of Sturgis, and what the reactions are to that. Next slide, please. This is a quick summary of the existing playground structures. There's the 2 to 5 structure, the 5 to 12, and then the little toddler playhouse there with the swings, along with the water table there. And again, we'll be looking for feedback on how people, whether these structures you feel are adequate, or you would like to see anything else. Next slide, please. And then circulation, as I mentioned, it's along the edges. It's pretty straightforward, just the asphalt path, with the turnarounds there on the plateau, which does afford nice views back out across the park. So we are considering that there might be a better use for that plateau space there instead of a turnaround that seems more vehicular sized, and that perhaps we could accommodate sort of maintenance in another way, and that perhaps that plateau might be better served to have another purpose. And then the bottom middle slide, I'll just note that we did notice there's no seating or at the tennis courts if you wanted to sit and watch a game. So we're assuming that would be desirable. Next slide, please. And these are the structures, right? The existing building, the on-site utilities, premier field bleachers, which as we know are about 100 years old now, and the retaining wall there behind the tennis courts. Some of the light poles have been replaced. Others will need to be replaced. I think about half are new and half are old. Next slide, please. So this, I believe, is our final poll before we open it up to a discussion. Please, if you could limit your answer to one word, if you could sum it up. I believe it's gonna give us back a word cloud, and so thank you. 1 or 2 words, yeah, it responds best.
Looks like there's subtle support for street hockey. There's a lot of street hockey being called out here, and strong and in the middle, we see dog park, dog park, dog park. So that's cool. That's interesting. Lots of trails.
Dog park and no dog park. So I think we can have
that's always the tension in these meetings. So that'll be interesting. We'll figure that out. And but there's a lot of great suggestions here, right? Like walking paths and chairs. There's a lot of stuff that's easily done, and there's other stuff that we'll take a little bit more discussion to try and pick apart and figure out like what we're actually what we're actually talking about here.
Mhm.
All right. So it's interesting, right? As more and more people are contributing, the center themes of street hockey and dog park and no dog park are getting slightly smaller. So this is great. This means there's like a broad diversity of views that are represented here tonight, which is awesome. Like this is our goal, is to hear from as many people as we can with as much diverse input as possible, so we can try and create a design that really fulfills as much for as many people, recognizing that not every person is going to be like 100% psyched all the time. Great. Well, I thank you all for contributing to this. This is, I think, a great jumping off point for our conversation. And thanks to the design team for walking us through that research and that analysis. I think that's really helpful. If we can we flick to the next slide, I think? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so our goal here for the conversation, Parks is here to listen. We want input. I also know that there's a lot of dog park, no dog park on that slide. So I'm just gonna face that head on. And like, I realize it's sort of a contentious use. It tends to be for whatever reason. And I just want to emphasize here tonight, these people are your neighbors, right? So please keep it friendly and nice and accommodating, and understand that, like, you know, we hear you. We hear the people asking for dog parks, and we hear the people who are emphatically against it. We get this a lot. So don't think that we're like missing the note that you just typed in or whatever. Like we see it, and anything that's put in the chat gets documented. This meeting tonight is going to get recorded as well. We're taking notes. So anyway, thank you for sharing your opinions and your thoughts, and let's keep it civil. So I think if we could proceed with raising our hands, and then Christine can pick someone. Before we do this, I also just want to say there was a comment having to do with accessibility of entrances, and I want to emphasize that that is certainly a goal of this project. A primary goal really is to make the experience of the park be very similar for everybody, right? And if we have you know, to have as many entrances as possible, I think there'd be a real challenge with those stairs. Numerous flights of stairs might not be possible, but other entrances, we're definitely going to be looking to address that. So not only getting into the park, but getting around the park. So I will step back and we'll hear from some people. There are a lot of people here tonight. There are 80 people. So please try and keep your comments succinct. Thank you so much.
David?
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'll be brief. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah, I just, with all due respect and respectfully to the non-dog people, there's a great number of people who use this field. There's no dog parks on this side of the city. Everyone acknowledges it. And it would really be kind of unconscionable to kind of dispossess them of the passive space that they use. The other thing, you know, I get concerned about with a fence, and I don't have an objection to a fence other than it carves up the field. And we wouldn't want a dog park to be like a 10-foot by 10-foot corral, because there's just too many people who use it, and that's not really useful. The other things I would say is, you know, pickleball is rising. It's great that you lined the tennis courts, but they clearly need to be resurfaced. And the lighting over there is terrible, really. You can't play pickleball or use most of the tennis courts at night because the lights aren't facing the court in the right way. So if that could be done, and maybe not just have better lighting, but keep it on longer. I mean, with climate change, you can get out there and be active for a longer period of time. The last thing I'll say with pickleball is it's a rising sport at all age groups, but it is particularly embraced by the older group, which is a really big way to kind of achieve some equitable use of the parks with by including some of the older people. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Lisa.
Hi there. Thank you very much. First of all, I just want to thank you all for taking the time tonight to invite us all in. This is the first time I'm participating in anything like this, and I really have enjoyed listening and watching the process. So I'm really excited to be a part of it, and thank you for that opportunity. So my name is Lisa Simons, and I am here as the president of Parkway Girls Softball League. And I've put some notes down, so apologies. I'm joined on this call by many of our board members and families who use this park. For those of you who don't know, Parkway Girls Softball League, PGSL, is one of the largest youth softball programs in Boston. We offer instructional and competitive softball opportunities for children throughout the year. And we've been doing it for 17 years. Our spring league serves over 325 children on average, ages 4 to 18. And on top of that, another 75 volunteer coaches. We have 100 plus players in our fall ball every August through November. We have tournament teams that host 5 USA softball tournaments each year, with teams coming in from as far away as Rhode Island and New York. And prior to COVID, we also hosted summer camps, which average around 40 children each summer, and it's something we're looking to restart next year. So I just wanted to give a little bit of that background, because as you can see, Parkway Girls Softball League is one of the, if not the primary user and permit holder for Billings Field. We use both the softball field and the Little League field, and we do that basically from late March through mid-November. So we are there, and we are there all the time, and it's really one of the few places that is actively supporting women's and girls sports. So it's a really important thing for our girls to have those kinds of opportunities. And, I'll also just call out that we have dedicated families and volunteers who put in a great deal of sweat equity and time to help keep those fields playable throughout all sorts of weather conditions. So we are out there on Saturdays and Sundays and throughout the week, helping to make sure that those fields are playable. And Allison Ning, thank you for the what. I appreciate it. And then, I'll just say Billings is our home. We consider our home, and vital to ensure that youth sports together, but in particular girls softball, continues to be at Billings for years to come. Any season you're going to see softball being played there, maybe not winter, but every season. And if it's not Parkway Girls Softball League, there's also women's leagues and the Coppingers Men's League, all using it for softball. So, I'm here on behalf of our board members and the families who make up PGSL Nation, just to make sure that softball and youth sports continues to be, at the forefront of the usage for this park. And we are able to call Billings our home field. If I can just talk a couple of things about the playground and some of the other issues, I'll say the playground is awesome. Our little ones are playing on the field while their older siblings are playing at both the Little League and the softball field. And it really is something to be able to have that kind of complex, right, where we are having girls of all ages coming together as community to be able to play on the fields all throughout the seasons. And then from an issues perspective, flooding. It's got to be, hopefully for anyone who's there at any time, it floods whenever it rains. We work really hard to keep that there. I've seen a couple of folks on the chat lines talking about turf infields and grass outfields. I haven't looked into that all that much, but it sounds like a great idea and a way to probably balance some of the environmental challenges, but also making those fields accessible and playable throughout the year. We definitely, as a growing organization, definitely would love to see additional use of the space, perhaps another diamond on there for the girls, so that we can continue to bring more girls into a more of a community base instead of spacing out our games all across the area. And I'd also love to see batting cages come there. So there are lots of great things, and everyone here that I've seen has raised lots of good opportunities. I love all of the additional shade, updating the park, but and lots of the other things. We bring our dog there too. I don't know that a dog fenced in area necessarily, but we love Billings Park, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to ask you to help us make sure youth sports and girls softball continues to be at Billings Field. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. It's very helpful. Lots of great perspectives there, and that's great to hear. Thanks.
Allison. Sorry. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi. So my name is Allison Ning. I live in the neighborhood, in the Valley Hill neighborhood, and I am a parent with Parkway softball. Love Lisa, love Regina. Shout out to Jerry. Jerry, I agree with the turf fields. I brought my daughter up in Parkway softball. She's 15. She's in high school. Softball is going to be the driving force in her life. And a lot of kids in West Roxbury can say that. A lot of kids in this neighborhood can say that. I'm also a Boston school teacher. Let me tell you, I love my dog. He's like my son. This is him right here. I'm not a non-dog owner. I love my son, my dog. He's like my son. But I love my child and I love all the children in this community. And we need this field for children to develop their skills and make a path so they can achieve the goals that they have and what they aspire to do. I'm here to serve children in this community. I've coached with Parkway. I've seen my daughter come up in the league. I've watched a lot of her friends come up in the league. It's huge. So you can take your dog to Hines, or, maybe, if there's not a game going on, bring your dog there. But having dogs in the field, it's not safe for the dogs. It's not safe for the kids. So I just ask you to respectfully also consider that take, because we should be serving children. So that's all I have to say. I'm going to echo everything that Lisa said. And I'm just here to support the community and the kids.
Thank you, Allison. Dennis? Dennis?
Yeah, I'm right here. So this is Dennis Roach. I'm the president of Parkway Little League. We work very closely with Parkway Girls Softball. We serve over 700 kids from July and through September, and we use the fields quite a bit. We also work closely with the Parkway Babe Ruth League, which serves kids a little bit older than us, probably almost 200 kids that use the baseball field. We are in full agreement with Parkway Girls Softball has said that these fields need to be remain for youth recreational opportunities. We support the turf infields as a nice compromise to not having a complete turf complex, although I know there's other sports and youth recreational programs that might advocate for full turf facility, but as far as baseball and softball go, turf infields are actually instrumental for a park system that does not have the resources, the bodies of the staff to support in work and on these particular fields to keep them ready and playable for the seasons. In all aspects, other areas of the country with the same climate issues that we have, they're installing turf infields and grass outfields as a nice compromise to balance climate issues and playability issues for the youth of their neighborhood. So baseball is in full support of keeping this mainly focused on youth recreational activities, whether that be infields and field space, in batting cages. We love the ideas of street hockey courts being installed. We're sympathetic to the dog issues. We love the playgrounds that are in the neighborhood, but everything that focuses on kind of youth recreation and building this up for our kids, we fully support. We have a lot of volunteers in our neighborhood that make these leagues and all these leagues work, and these fields are absolutely critical to the survival of these leagues for our youth. So that's all I want to say about this, but we are fully in support of all youth recreational opportunities at Billings Field.
That's great. Thank you so much, Dennis. I want to say that, these days it is, there are very few, if any, renovations where an existing grass field is going to become synthetic turf. The city is really moving away from that. So I think that we are certainly aware of the drainage issues and the playability concerns of natural grass, but I think in the long run, it's going to help us come to a design more quickly if we just consider that natural grass is going to be the likely material. And so, we're willing to, look at under drainage, and we're willing to look at different grass mixes, and we're certainly willing to work with the sports teams to sort of figure out what package works best for the fields, because we're aware that that's a need. But I just want to contain expectations about synthetic turf. So I appreciate everyone thinking and contributing their ideas towards that, but I just want to put that out there for now. Okay.
Regina?
Hi, thank you. I appreciate you having this forum tonight. And I'm sorry I cannot turn my camera on, but I am here to represent Parkway softball as well as the Parkway YMCA and my own personal agenda in the sense that I was a benefactor of Pam Siegel's tremendous efforts back in 1986 when she first had the park redone. And I spent my youth in Billings Field. And as such, I came up in the softball system, and I'm there to give back today in the same way that volunteers gave back to me when I was coming up in the softball leagues. And you know, it's such an important aspect in a young female's life to be able to have these social outlets that, you know, that's why I had to speak up for the Parkway softball that, you know, these are, we're talking about nonprofit organizations, also the YMCA, nonprofit organizations where there's often scholarships and money being put back into the community in some sort. We're talking about families who may receive scholarships to be able to attend the summer camps. I know the Parkway YMCA uses those fields for the majority of June, July, August, and many of those kids receiving scholarships to go there. So important to keep that as a sports complex, if you will, for the community. A lot of our seniors getting involved, as it's been stated, in pickleball, and just keeping that sense of athletics within the parks and rec is super important. So just wanted to come on and be an advocate for all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm probably gonna mess this up, but Matilia.
Hi. Thank you for letting me speak, and thank you for having this session as well. I am speaking as a dog parent. And, you know, what I wanted to mention was dogs. Yes, we do walk and use the field. However, I think as from a lot of dog parents, you would see what we are requesting is not an exclusive request. I do believe that this can coexist with the playing fields, as some of the parents are requesting. And a couple of reasons out there. Number one, having a dog park in walking distance for dog parents is a requirement, as well as we've seen it on the chat as well. And the other part, again, for those of us requesting for playing fields, which I'm totally in support. I do have a teenager who does use the field as well. Because if you look at the data during school days, in the morning, there are dogs on the field, but these dogs are there between 7:30 to about 8:30 a.m. And hopefully during school days, we don't have kids using the fields, because in the school days, anyways, on school days, if you have kids using the field, that's a different problem that we should be addressing, right? Why are kids not in school, and why are they on Billings? So during school days, dogs are there from 7 to about 8:30, which is when there are no other people using the field, especially, right? And a little bit in the early afternoon is when the fields is used. Again, if we look at the youth sports, you know, those kick off again after school programs. Typically, you're kicking off around 4 p.m. onwards, not much going on during school year. And that's where I think I believe we can coexist, right? Because we do have a use, as I think, Lisa, you had mentioned, you do use the field pretty much throughout the years. As dog parents, we also use the field pretty much throughout the year. It's just that we are using it at different times where I think we can definitely coexist without disrupting the kids. And yes, I do agree that we can place in rules that there should not be dogs running around the field once you have the kickoff, say around 4 p.m. onwards, and that would be fine. That's all that I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard? Richard? All right, we'll move on to Brian for now. Brian?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, this is Brian Clardy. I'm on the board of directors of Parkway Youth Hockey. I'd also like to support all the other youth programs that are there, obviously softball, baseball, including the lacrosse program as well, getting some access there. But I guess what I'd like to say about Parkway Youth Hockey is that we have about 400 members. We're the largest youth hockey program in the city of Boston. And there are many kids in the neighborhood that play street hockey and love it. And as you saw before, there's a lot of interest in getting a court hockey set up, much like the one in the North End or Dorchester. We travel, to Rosendale, a lot of the kids, to play in a league. And we'd love to have one at Billings Field. I feel like there's plenty of tennis courts. I don't think one would be missing if we turned it into court hockey.
Thank you. Sam? Sam, unmute yourself. There you go.
Hi, this is Frank Galvin.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for having this tonight. I spend a lot of time at Billings Field. I actually grew up in West Roxbury. There were two other fields, Fallon Fields and Heinz Field, that get a lot of use. However, Billings Field is by far the biggest and probably has the most room there to fit in, many of the great suggestions that people are calling in with. I feel that as a city park, you should also consider teaming up with the YMCA, because the YMCA plays a big role in the whole Parkway area, and they utilize the field a lot too. So I think, as a kind of partnership with the YMCA, you could come up with a lot of good ideas, that would fit in with, street hockey, with, softball, with baseball. A lot of people would like to see a running track, an extension of the pathway around Billings Field. They have the Cora Road race and a lot of West Roxbury Parkway events at Billings Field, that would be conducive to utilizing a track and also a turf field. My suggestion is anyone who hasn't seen the field over in back of Jamaica Pond, it's actually in Brookline, but they've done a tremendous job there. And you go over there anytime and there are so many events going on, and they have successfully developed turf fields and a track, and they have exercise stations, for people that want to get their exercise while they're walking on the track. But there's tremendous room for expansion at Billings Field. So I think many of these suggestions can fit in really nicely to the redeveloped Billings Field. As a parent of children also that use the children's playground, I just want to say that there was some issues with the development of the field now, where they have, 4 and 5 big boulders right in the middle of the children's playground. And I've heard more and more parents complain about kids, tripping and falling into those boulders. So I think as far as redesigning playgrounds for children, you have to consider the safety of the playgrounds for the kids. because you have everyone from say 13, 14-year-olds down to your toddlers just starting to walk. So thank you again for your time, and we appreciate your consideration of these requests in making Billings Field a better place and more accessible to everyone. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim. Those are some great suggestions, and I think that that's also a really good point that I wanted to emphasize, that this is a very large park. And so, you know, there are a lot of great suggestions that I'm hearing tonight that we could definitely look at how things could be sort of realigned to fit more in, and to have these walking paths and these building out the program to make it, you know, more and varied and interesting. So thank you very much.
Richard? You have to unmute yourself.
While we're dealing with technical issues, I just wanted to look at the chat, and bathroom accessibility, I understand, is a question. The bathrooms, right, are in that older building, and I know that the building right now is undergoing sort of a building assessment. There's a park-wide building assessment that's happening to sort of figure out accessibility renovations. It would not be part of our park renovation because it's a building, and there's laws having to do with who spends funding on what, and parks, we do horizontal construction, we don't do vertical, so we can't do a building, but public facilities department can. So that's good to hear that bathroom accessibility and their openness is an issue, so I can try and follow up on that. I don't know if there's anyone else who has their hand raised.
They do. I was just trying to see Richard, but we'll go with Parkway Community for now. YMCA.
Hi guys, it's Kelly. Hi. I just wanted to like agree with a lot of the feedback that's been said. So I know I worked at the Y for 22 years, and Billings has always been a staple in the community. So I think it's very important that any kind of renovation serves everyone. I work at the Y, but I know this summer we served over 700 children at Billings Field through permits, and that's like a huge excitement in the community for them to have that space to learn sports, to grow. And going back to Parkway softball, I do agree that it's a really good opportunity to make sure that kids have sports in like localized that they can get to, that's accessible to them. So my only thought is I liked what Frank said about the roundabout there. There's a lot of active older adults in our community that we're not able to serve because they don't have a place to go. And Millennium Park is awesome because they have the walking trails. But if we could just do like a track around Billings, it would be so beneficial to the community. And I'm excited to see what this will bring. But I do think that a lot of it has to do, we're so locally close to you guys, like to Billings, and we pull permits and we work with you guys, and everyone is so helpful to make sure that we can run programs in that site. And I think the construction or any kind of change to the design is really important to involve the neighbors and the community and everyone else that's a neighboring location. But I do believe that it needs some renovation, but I just want to think that the kids that are in the community that are, if they're in sports or they're in camp or they're in program, I think Billings is the best place for them to be. The facility maintenance is huge with that. And making sure it's like well maintained is a huge part of that. But I personally just wanted to say, like, I think the Y is so excited to be a neighboring partner of Billings Fields and with you all. And I think that we've been useful of the field in past times. So I just think that it's really great that, like, there's all these other agencies that want to have like a street hockey, for example. I think that would be awesome, right? But I think it's all about partnerships, and I think that we all can grow from that with the community and people's talents. But I mean, that's what I just wanted to say. But I hope that you guys know too, like with Billings Field, we have a lot of history there. I think a lot of people that come from that community remember the old wooden playground, right? Like I do. So I think it's a very nostalgic place, and I think it's nice to recognize that, and I think it's nice to involve the community. So I am very thankful that you guys had this meeting today to talk about this field, because I know that was one of my favorite places to go as a child.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I think that, that's great. We really want to reiterate that we understand that this park goes back a long way and it's a really important role in this community. And Parks is eager to work with other groups, and, Parkway Y, we definitely know that you guys utilize the site all the time. So, we're eager to hear from you guys about, like, your take on improvements, and obviously, when construction process starts, I mean, sort of like every step of the way, we're eager to work with people. And, so we're having this meeting and we have 2 other meetings scheduled, but again, I am accessible via phone and email all the time. So, well, not all the time, not at night, but, so I just want to emphasize that we are open and eager to working with you guys. So thank you.
Chase?
Hi, everyone. Chase Berkeley, resident of VFW Parkway. 4 children, ages 11 through 3, so frequent users of Billings Field. I just wanted to remind everyone listening, and I apologize if it's duplicative. I wasn't able to jump on the whole meeting, but there's a few special events: the Corb Road Race, the Parkway in Motion, Trick or Treat Center Street, that use Billings as a headquarters. So please keep that in mind as you go through the design process. And also, I think there's a big silent majority out there that isn't on this meeting because they have young kids like I do, and they're unable to attend. So I'd encourage you to spend some time in the park, and especially on weekends, and see the number of people that use it, particularly the playground facilities, but everything. And the youth sports particularly is jammed down there. There's not enough space for them on a busy day. So really maximizing that ability to encompass all the different youth sports that utilize that area, and a big supporter of the infield turf. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Matt?
Hi, thanks. Matt McCloskey. I'm a parent, usually using Park for the playground. I'm really excited to see what the redesign looks like. A lot of great ideas. My question was, I think it was asked in the chat earlier, based on the timeline, how long are we looking at the park being closed for?
So part of that would depend on the appetite for moving things around, right? And if we're looking at like a total redesign, this is a large park, so it could be like 1.5 years. If this is something where we're doing like a little bit of repairs here and there, some resurfacing, some new play equipment, some new drainage kind of thing, it would probably be closer to 9 months, perhaps 9 months to 1 year. As you all know, like winter in Boston is real. So usually you can't do construction for, January and February, or at least it's patchy at best. So, it's sort of like an 8-month construction window that would fit within a larger period of time that it would be closed. But yeah, so it does depend on the scope of the project that we're looking at. And you know, I'm hearing some suggestions tonight that sort of indicate that like maybe it would make sense to move things around. I know that's sort of a hard thing to swallow in the meantime when you're like, but the next season, you know, like I totally get that. So it's one of those things that like thinking long term, you know, like a reorganization is, you know, if that's good, then it's all for the best in the long run. And parks would work permit wise to try and relocate teams where that would be possible. But, you know, it's one of those trade-offs that would be like trade off something for the short term, for the long term good. But, you know, I haven't heard from a lot of people tonight saying that like the location of the courts, it's blinding, you can't play, you know, like we want everything moved. So, you know, maybe I think we'll probably, based on what I'm hearing now, you know, I feel like one of our suggestions design wise for the second meeting might involve reorganizing things, and maybe the other two plans are just sort of addressing smaller scale issues. So it really depends, is a long answer to your question.
Jim?
Hi, I just wanted to say I am probably, Kelly was on earlier from the Y, and they're a very close neighbor, but I'm on the other side of the wall, so I'm the closest neighbor to Billings Field. And I have 4 children, and we love Billings. We brought all of our kids up playing softball, little t-ball, things such as that. I think 2 important things, first of all, I think it's great that, you know, you're looking to do a renovation of Billings. Every morning I walk from my house over to the Parkway and I walk around Heinz Field, and I can tell, if anybody hasn't been there, the Parks Department did an incredible job in fixing up Heinz Field. So if it's going to be anything, hopefully it would be something like that, because what they did is amazing. Everybody should go take a look, especially since we're talking about renovating our neighborhood field. Take a look at what happened over at Heinz between the basketball courts. They really didn't do much work on the playground area, but the fields, the baseball field and the softball field, it's incredible. So that's what I'm looking forward to. The 2 biggest things, being a close neighbor, is I think it would be fabulous if we did have a pathway that went all the way around the field, such as they have at Heinz. And when we do our walk in the morning, we go into Heinz and we do 2 or 3 loops around. Unfortunately, if you're on Billings, you can only do 2/3 of the way around, unless you want to go walk on the grass, which could be wet or, you know, whatever, you know, not a smooth surface. So I think that would be important. Also, the wooded area. No one's talked about the wooded area, but I think anybody who lives close to Bellevue Street or close to where I live on Bellevue Street knows that that's anytime it's a very, very, you can't see what's happening in there. And anytime you can't see what's happening, you know what's happening is not great things. And, you know, it's just loaded with beer bottles, broken beer bottles, cans, trash. At one point, the city came in and really cleared out the area so that you could see what was happening. I think I have nothing against trees, but I think we really need to clear out quite a few of the trees so that it's an area that people could use for a trail walk, a few trails. You could actually put a few trails in there for people to walk through and then connect back down into the park. But right now it's an area that I don't like walking through. And I just know, because I live next door to it, that there's not great things happening in the evening. So, but I'm very excited, as I know a lot of my neighbors are. I think this is going to be a great thing, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Parkway, YMCA? Regina?
Thank you so much. I'm talking again, but I heard some very good points, and Jim, you're spot on. I've been down that walkway before, and you're bound to smell the weeds spilling out of that space, and you're gonna find empty bottles on the ground. My kids do there were a couple of people in the community that use this space that I didn't hear represented. And for example, Tenacity that uses the tennis courts. My kids, I have 2 children. They were both involved in that for about 5 or 6 years now. And I would often walk them down there, and you have to keep your eyes on the ground because you might step on glass or something. So definitely needs to be brought attention to. The other group I didn't hear talked about a lot was during the day, it was said that this, the Billings field is pretty much a ghost town and there shouldn't be kids there. But the reality is there are a lot of elementary education programs around. Like we talked about the YMCA and the summer camps they have, but it's really used year round by the YMCA. They run sports programs throughout. And there's an elementary school there, preschool, with about 12 classes that visit the park on a daily basis. And there are multiple private daycares around, exercise groups, Mama Beast, a very big exercise program for women. So I just wanted to point that out too when we think about bringing dogs into the area. Like there are kids that are using the park all day long with their daycare or nannies or whomever is there. And it's not just the tot lot, they're using the entire playground. Kids are playing basketball. We have young adults, college kids that are always out there playing basketball. So it's not a ghost town during the day, is my point. So I just wanted to make sure all those groups were represented. And I'm all for a track around the park. I just really would love to see some batting cages. So hopefully we can work all that in, and I'd be a happy camper. Thank you.
Sorry, there we go. Thank you so much, Melissa. I have asked Melissa to put up this information, not because we are ending the meeting now, we still have another 15 minutes, but I've noticed that there are a couple people that are peeling off. And so I wanted to get this information out there. Following up on tonight's meeting. So tonight's meeting is a wonderful opportunity for us to hear, take the temperature of your community and understand what the priorities are. And I think we're hearing some great feedback and also understanding a few points of tension perhaps. But so we're also asking people to fill out a survey. And so if you've come to our meeting and shared your opinion is logged. So don't worry, you don't have to do the survey if you don't want to, but it would be great if anyone hasn't attended the meeting, or if you came tonight, but you didn't really have any thoughts on it, so you didn't say anything. This is another way that you have to share your feedback with us. So if you could scan this and pass it around to your friends, family, community members, etc. This is going to be open for the next 2 weeks. And I will be emailing this out to everybody who attended our meeting tonight and everybody on our contact list. So go back to people's thoughts and feedback. And that was really great. Also, the conversation happening about the wooded area. I think, Jim, you had said that. It's great to hear experiences with that, because I think that it is a real opportunity back up in there to have some sort of wooded walkways, maybe some sitting areas or something like that. So anyway, it's great to hear attention being called to that. I'm also sort of curious about like the fencing surrounding the park. Is that something, is everybody eager to maintain this park sort of entirely fenced in? Are there any opinions about that? Because some of it's falling down and we could take out some of the fencing potentially, sort of open it up and have it be more sort of free flowing. Anyway, just throwing some questions out there, and if people have other ideas and comments as well that they've been thinking about, please share.
If anyone else wants to raise their hand, I can unmute you. Looks like you covered it all, B.
That's amazing and awesome. It is 7:17. So, this has been some really great input that we've received. And I think that we've got some great initial direction. Again, we're going to be checking in with our survey in 2 weeks just to see sort of what feedback is there. I really appreciate everybody keeping it positive and pretty much supportive during the conversations for the different opinions. Obviously, there are, there's some conflict out there, but that's normal. That's life. So I appreciate everybody taking the time to come here tonight and to watch this presentation and to participate. And I look forward to seeing you in the next couple months for our second meeting, hearing feedback for that too. And then, let me know in the meantime if you have any thoughts, direction, feedback, etc. Thank you so much. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
night.